Rolling. Hey, it's me, Alan.
Hi, I'm Steven.
This is Steven. We're Joan. We're hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live, and we're so stoked to be here.
What's up, Joan? I'm super excited to finally get to hang out with you guys. I've been actually trying to reach out and schedule an interview with you guys since 2020 when Cloudy dropped, and I've been obsessed with the band since. So I'm excited that we get to talk about this upcoming debut album, and I can't believe we're finally saying debut album. How's it going, guys?
Good, man. Thanks.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
What's up, Rob? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I've been listening to you guys for a while. So getting to dive in a little bit deeper with your creative process is very exciting. So if you guys don't mind, I want to dive in already and jump into Loner, which is the current single. And this really hit home. This is me all the way. This song, I felt like we met and you guys wrote it about me. Like that's exactly how I felt about it. But take me into the studio and that creative process. Like what really kickstarted the writing process for Loner?
Yeah, I think, help me correct myself if I'm wrong, but I think that one started as kind of a guitar line with a lyric we had originally. We actually talked about this the other day. We posted it on our Patreon. It started out as I'm just a loser, I think was the first lyric, which then changed to, that felt like too self-critical. So we changed it to Dreamer and then started writing language around that. And then we eventually landed on Loner because it felt like it told the story best. But yeah,
we were like, that's too self-critical to that's not self-critical enough to to just write, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean it's kind of about just like we kind of chatted with each other like kind of as we do whenever we go to write songs. And just we were kind of just thinking back on our childhood and feeling almost like we weren't, it's not like we weren't like unpopular or anything, but a lot of the times we felt like we were kind of out of place in kind of whatever crowd we were in, and didn't quite find the right, people that matched well with us, like as we were growing up. And that's kind of where the song comes from, is that sort of feeling, just not exactly feeling like you're fitting in kind of wherever you are. And then writing kind of around the story of like finding someone that feels the exact same way, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, we can just be like loners together kind of thing. So yeah, that's sort of where it started from.
One of the things that really drew my attention with the band early on is stylistically, sonically, your music gives me like nostalgic 90s vibes with obviously some new kind of sound and something fresh. But how do you go about like creating all of this music, giving this kind of nostalgic vibe, still keeping it fresh, but like releasing more and more tracks at the same time? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. We're like always in search of, I guess the word would be like timelessness. We're like in search of like when we hear songs that we love that are from, our past or growing up or whatever, for Loner, I listened to a lot of Death Cab for Cutie growing up. So like
Yes,
indie rock, like Thursday, Taking Back Sunday, basically any band name with day in it. I grew up liking. But then even before that, it was what our parents were listening to. So it was like James Taylor and Rush and Kiss. I mean, just like the gamut. And my mom was into like 90s country. And so I don't know, we kind of early on decided that we love pop music in general. We love in all of its ebbs and flows and different genre, bending that it does. The 90s is a really good reference because I feel like in the 90s, early alts, you could have a song that was like NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye, and then like a Shania Twain song would come on after it, and then like Smash Mouth to Nirvana. Yeah. And so it was just this beautiful, like 10 to 15, 20-year or a couple of decades where music was so all over the place, but it was all about the hooks. It was how catchy was it? Production could be all over the place. So we were kind of like, what if and it probably was less conscious at the beginning than it is now, but we were kind of like, what would that be like to be in a band that did that? we've never been ones to be like, trap hats are popular right now, we should do trap hats. Like, when I hear that stuff, it's all respect to the artists that use. I mean, that's like one very specific example, but just trendy things that tend to not last as long. I'm just like, I'm just not. We're not as interested in that. We're more interested in like, let's still give you a catchy song that maybe stylistically doesn't hit what the current thing is, but still draws you in the same, So I feel like that helps us stand out. Maybe I don't know if it works, but that's the goal.
I feel like it's hard though, just because like now there's so much new music and we're always consuming new artists, new music, new hit singles and stuff. So like as an artist, do you have to kind of stray away from that so it doesn't kind of mesh into the creative process when you're writing your material?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of a net positive, just because there's so much that you can find whatever you want to find music wise. And so I think that kind of forces us to just stay as true to like what we think Joan is as possible. And just like, we honestly don't listen to a ton of music to like, just to listen to it. A lot of the times we're listening to, certain snare sounds, or how'd they get that guitar tone, or why did they write the melody this way, or it's a lot of the times like we find ourselves studying music more than we are like leisurely listening. And I think that's a good thing overall, just because I think at the end of the day we're trying to make Joan consistent with what what makes Joan. So even whenever we went to write this album, like we dove into albums that we loved that are from the 80s and 90s, and then all the way up until like Harry's House, and just like what makes those albums a good album, and why have they stood the test of time. And I think that's what we want to take away from music, to move to our music, is like, how can we translate that and put that like into our music and make it a timeless piece of work, kind of thing.
Basically what you're saying is you guys went through all this research before you can finally say, hey, it's time to create a debut album.
Yeah,
right.
Well, and that was a big reason why we waited as long as we did. I mean, we've been a band now for 5 years. It feels more like 3 because but in terms of recording music, writing music, it was late 2016, early 2017 that we really started going. But it took us that long because you're exactly right. We wanted to do a lot of research and figure out what we were like. We are in what you said, not your exact words, but essentially what you said, like an attention economy now, where it's like everything's so fast and everyone's fighting for your scroll. We were like, man, if we're fighting against everyone from bands our size to The Weeknd, like we need to make sure that make damn sure that our debut album is like stand out to some degree. And
all right, Taking Back Sunday.
Exactly. So yeah, that's why we waited, and here we are, and we're very proud of it. I think because of that, and in a lot of ways, we took our time and really crafted what we feel like is our perfect version of our debut album. Like I don't think we could have done any better than what we did for us. Again, people will decide whether that's true or not, but for us, it's like we love it.
Yeah.
So
having that mentality with your music and basically having that artistic kind of style that you do with your music, I feel like it's important when it comes to other producers. And I see that you guys pretty much self-produce most of it, with the exception of Austin Hull. So how important was it discovering or finding Austin for your music? And how do you feel that you guys help each other out when it comes to the creative process?
Oh, first of all, Austin is he's a killer producer, just hands down. He runs a thing called Make Pop Music on Facebook, and it's like a big Facebook group with I think 100,000 plus
and
people.
a YouTube channel.
And a YouTube channel, yeah. And so he's like one of those guys that if you saw him and didn't know anything about him, you'd be like, oh, he's like a really legit tutorial based producer. Like he'll do like an example of like The Weeknd's new album. He'll go, how do we make a song from Dawn FM and get these sounds? And then he'll like recreate he'll write his own track and then show you like how to kind of create in that world. And so if you see it and take that at face value, you're like, oh, he's a really good YouTube producer. That's like people's, it's easy to get locked in. But then you realize like, no, he's just a really great producer who also loves teaching. He's like one of those, like, it's not those who can't do teach situation. It's he can literally do both really well. And so we got tagged on Facebook by a friend that someone had posted on there, like it's like a community where people who are making pop music can like resource each other. And someone said, how do I get these synth sounds on this Joan song, Magnetic? And one of my friends tagged me and was like, why don't you just ask the guy himself? And so I was like, oh, this is cool. I didn't know this existed. So through that, we got connected with Austin and just stayed plugged into that community. And when we were making this album, those two songs that he helped with, Nervous and Don't Want to Be Your Friend, we'd kind of taken probably, I don't know, 80% of the way there. And we were both just like hitting walls on, okay, how do we polish this? And he was just like the first person we thought of like, I'd really be interested to see what Austin would do with this. And like within a day or two, he sent us, we sent him the session and he sent us like 30 tracks back or something to add to it. And it shaped the songs and put them over the finish line really easily. It was an easy process because he's so freaking pro. So that's been a really cool relationship to build. So, and we don't trust everybody with that. And that's why we self-produce, because we know what we want. We have the clear vision. And if we can't get it there, we're very self-aware to know we can't and we need help. And then that's when we reach out, just to a buddy to see if they'll help with it. So.
Yeah, now as we dive into this debut album, the fact that, again, going back to you guys self-producing, when you think about the debut album and then you look back at, we'll say, Cloudy EP, for example, since that was my first experience of the band, how do you feel that evolution has been from that EP to now Superglue?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even thinking like from the very start of Joan, like in general, I think our MO has kind of always been like, take each song as it comes and just like not be afraid to have one song completely different to the next song that we're making, and just like go for whatever it feels like it needs, and kind of service it that way. But I think as far as like producing ourselves, it took a few years where we carefully picked kind of from the start, like who we wanted involved kind of in our team. We always knew, like, we have pretty much written everything ourselves since the beginning. And then Cloudy was the first time for us where, like, well, I guess we produced with a friend of ours named Andy Seltzer, and he kind of did all of Cloudy with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was honestly the most that we've let a producer in kind of from the beginning, of like, hey, here are these ideas for songs. What could you hear on this? Like a very collaborative thing, like from, having the sketch songs kind of done. We flew him in, like worked on those songs together. And then like right after we released that EP, or maybe like while we were releasing it. And the way we wrote that EP was very much with live shows in mind, and like basically envisioning like playing to a crowd that knew all the words and they were super high energy and everything, and felt like a Joan show. And then whenever the hit, we were like, we want these songs to still hit people where they are, even though we can't play for them live for people. So we reimagined that EP completely and ended up kind of figuring out through that process, through making what we called Partly Cloudy. Like we built up a real confidence to produce kind of everything on our own. And that was, I don't want to speak for Alan, but I think that was the first time where he kind of takes the production role, and leads it. And it was the first time I remember he was like, I can do this like on our own, and we can kind of go for it, and kind of from start to finish be, just us producing it. And so then the next year we did High and By and just built up more reps through that. And then really had a lot of confidence going into making the album as far as production and writing and everything goes. And it really felt like it was the first time we were like, all right, we're ready to take on an album, like every piece of it, and like really know that what going to be heard is going to be from us. You know, everything is from start to finish is like our voice being kind of said. So yeah, it was cool.
The fact that you guys are self-producing this album, there's 13 tracks on it. How are you guys able to separate Joan the artist and then Joan the producer when you guys are creating, or when you guys were recording this album?
We've got a really good process together. Like the way we write songs and produce songs out, like our process is pretty easy between Steven and I. Like we both know our roles. We know like where each other naturally leads out. And then when we need help, we ask for help. You know, it's like very symbiotic, I guess. I'd say what he just said, like Partly Cloudy was definitely the first time I remember sitting down and just in my own brain and going like, okay, if we were to never work with another producer again, we've got this. That doesn't mean it's going to be as good or bad or whatever, but I know that I can take a project from start to finish with him and like make it happen, and feel good about it. So when you're producing your own stuff, it's what's easy about it is every decision you're just like going off of gut feeling. Like this is the same process in your brain as why did we choose that lyric or that melody on the songwriting side is the same process and same part of the brain of like, why did I choose that sound to put with that, you know, lyric or melody or whatever. The challenge of it is the pressure's 100% on you, you know? So I'm not like I remember with Cloudy, it was, we flew Andy in, he worked with us for like 4 days straight. And our buddy Maddie's, who's our mixer, Matt Huber, he used to live in Conway near us. And we used his studio for 4 days, flew Andy in, just intensively tracked for 4 days as much as we could. Andy flew back to LA. And then it was kind of like we had done all the pre-work without him. He took the work we did together with him, and then he polished everything on his end. So it was a different process in that it was kind of all in his hands at that point of like, we could tweak and he sent me sessions and I'd add my stuff and whatever. But a large amount of the work at that point, once it passed off to him was, so the pressure's off of us a little bit of like deadlines and all of that. It's like, hey, I hope we love what he sends, but like, it's technically wholly up to Andy to make this, you know, over the finish line. So remove all that pressure from someone else and put it on ourselves. That definitely, you feel that, and you feel it with deadlines. And we just kind of had to like, end of last spring into summer, we just kind of for the first time blocked out like how many months? 4
yeah.
5 months to just be like, we're going to do other stuff. And we had some one-off shows and stuff, but we're working on this album. Like, so it's kind of the more traditional, I guess, approach of like when someone rents a studio for like a month and then you don't hear from them. And then, you know, all of a sudden they're like, album's done. And you're like, oh, wow, what happened? And that's magical. We did that just over 4 months of slow grinding in our bedrooms, essentially. So it's the same process, just in the comfort of mostly my home and then his home as well. So yeah, it was easy in a lot of ways and then challenging in a lot of ways. But even when I'm thinking back, like a lot of the challenges and the pressures are necessary because like otherwise we wouldn't get it finished. Like we work really well under deadlines. Like, so if we kind of go, okay, he'll kind of map out like this song, let's try to have knocked out in the next week and a half. And then this song, you know, just kind of over time. And then we can kind of hit it and go, hey, we actually ended early on this song. It's ready for mix. Let's move on to the next one. We just carved ourselves out another week that we didn't have. And so that part of it's kind of fun navigating. We're both creative brained, but enough, whatever side of the brain is like more type A, like scheduling, he's more that than I am, but I'm enough of it that I can hit, you know, it helps to have those deadlines and stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it feels good. It feels like it.
No, it did. And
I covered a lot of ground, so I think you can get something out of
I
that.
don't know what your question was, but we just said a lot of good stuff there.
I don't know what I asked, but it works. But I don't want to dive in too much on this album because I honestly, like, I want to wait until it drops. So then when you guys hit that tour, we can do this in person because I really want to dive in more in person. So in saying that, this album, Superglue drops April 19th. So just in time for this upcoming tour that you guys have. And I'm super excited for this tour because For me, I don't know. Maybe I was living under a rock, but I don't recall you guys coming to LA. So
Yeah, we've been, but yeah,
man,
so it's
But
okay.
where was I?
that's the beautiful thing though, is like we're finding people that haven't seen us live like more than ever now. Like
Yeah.
we're getting a lot of new fans coming in, and really stoked about this tour specifically. So it's cool to see and make new friends, kind of like wanting to come to shows.
They
So,
must be neighbors in your rock community.
So with this upcoming tour, you have Harriet and you have Aviv supporting you guys. And I'm curious, like for the new fans, what can we look forward to? And then for the OG fans, what can they look forward to on this tour?
sure. We're going through the set list and kind of seeing what the live thing looks like. But we're trying to play every single song on the album live, as well as like our favorite songs and what we kind of have realized are ones that always hit live. And honestly, just one, trying to make another great Jones show that like feels very us, but like with this one specifically, a lot of the show will be kind of like a bunch of new stuff for us. We're including a lot of elements that we never have before, and kind of like musically it'll feel really, really fresh and really new. So I don't know. We've always been very intentional and detailed when it comes to live shows, and so that'll be the same. But we're trying to level up this one, and hit people in a new way. So I'm super stoked about it.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to watching you guys live and getting to experience what Joan is all about. So Stephen Allen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and let's reunite again for this tour. Let's talk more about the album.
You're on, dude. We love it.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So you guys be sure to check out Superglue. It's out April 19th, and thanks for watching here on Front Row Live.